Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this sixth and final Conversations on Climate Governance. My name is Johan Raslan, and I'm here to welcome you to this session hosted by Sustainable Finance Institute Asia and ASEAN Climate Governance Network, which I'm from. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you don't need me to tell you that something is amiss regarding climate change and sustainability. All around us, we have got indicators of extreme changes that are causing untold damage to our countries. Some countries we are relatively lucky, but others in the region and a little bit beyond, we are seeing signs of foreboding. And the latest, of course, is the flooding, extreme flooding in Pakistan. So it's all coming closer and closer to home. Now, in this last of the series, we are going to address issues of funding and capital markets. With capital markets, it'll be harder and harder for our companies to access funding that we want in order to finance our growth. And this is because regulators and all stakeholders are increasingly aware of climate governance issues. And the regulators are putting pressure on the allocators of finance, who in turn are accessing all means to know what is happening in our countries and in our companies. Regulators are clear. It's important for companies to step up, and it's important for companies to have the narrative, have the story that is in line with the direction of travel that regulators are wanting to see. And in turn, allocators of capital are wanting us to look at. So we are having to step up. We're having to work on scope 3 and work with governments and regulators in particular. Otherwise, I think we can see the future coming quite fast, where our companies will be stymied in their access to ability to access capital, but also our countries may also face the same problems. Allocators of capital have access to all kinds of reports and analysis across regions that perhaps we don't always see. And we as companies have to ensure that we look beyond our own PR and our own story, which possibly we tend to kid ourselves as to how well we are doing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the climate emergency is definitely in front of us, and therefore it's very good today that we have Eugene Wong, the CEO of Sustainable Finance Institute of Asia, to hold our hands through this, through the capital markets, with his excellent panel. Eugene Wong is a former chartered accountant, a former investment banker, and of course he spent 10 years with the Securities Commission of Malaysia as a managing director. And he has therefore got a really unique ability to see across the zones and across the different sectors where we all work. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to hand you over to Eugene Wong and to his panel. Thank you very much.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was on mute. Thank you very much, Dr. Siriganjanavong, for that kind introduction. And I've used up my quota for not unmuting myself for the day. It's really nice of all of you to be here, an hour plus after lunch. This is actually a very important segment for all business leaders to listen to, because as Dr. Siriganjanavong has said, climate change is a very big agenda. It is a very important agenda. In the past, many people poo-pooed it believe that it was something that was a fad, it wasn't true, but we've seen for ourselves the real consequences of climate change. We've seen the flooding, we've seen the changing coastlines, we've seen the droughts, and there's a lot more to come. And because of this, climate change is an agenda that's global, and it's affecting any and all businesses in many different ways. It has a big impact on whether businesses will be around in the future, who their customers will be, and how they are going to be funded. Now, that's really, really important because we know that funding is the lifeblood of businesses. Providers of capital are taking climate change extremely seriously because they're concerned about the risk to their investments and also because of their own pledges. As regulators help drive the climate change agenda, new regulatory approaches and frameworks will be introduced. Investors are also changing their approaches and risk appetite, and capital market intermediaries need to help issuers and investors navigate this new landscape. We're indeed privileged to have three very experienced panelists here today to share with us their views and experience on how climate change will affect access to funding through the capital markets from different perspectives. First, I'd like to introduce Director General Dzung from the State Securities Commission of Vietnam. Director General Dzung actually is also a member of the ASEAN Taxonomy Board, has been involved in the capital market regulators' work in sustainable finance since it began. I'd like to introduce Dr. Man Juttijudata, who's the Deputy Secretary General, Investment, Strategy and External Fund Management Group from the Government Pension Fund of Thailand, and Kun Jamjun Siriganjanavong, who is Senior Director and Head of Debt Capital Markets from Krungsri Bank. It's really fortunate that we have three experts in their relevant fields to provide us three different perspectives on how climate change is going to affect the capital markets agenda. Now, with that, what I'd like to do is I'd just like to invite Director General Dzung to give us a short brief on what the capital market regulators have been doing in ASEAN with regard to the climate change agenda. Director General Dzung.
Thank you, Eugene, for the introduction. I'm happy to join the webinar and very happy to introduce the efforts of the ASEAN capital market regulators' efforts toward the sustainable finance in ASEAN and what our regulators have done for the sustainable finance and our green finance in ASEAN. Firstly, about the ICMF is a key player for in the ASEAN financial market. We are the ASEAN Capital Market Forum, which comprises of 10 members. This is a very high-level grouping of ASEAN securities regulators, and we were created in 2004 under ASEAN Finance Ministers. And our vision for 2025 is interconnected and resilient ASEAN capital market. Along with this one, we have various initiatives to mainstream sustainable finance in ASEAN capital markets that I will discuss later. What we have done for RIC. Firstly, our ASEAN Good Governance scorecards. In the revised methodology of ASEAN Good Governance scorecards, we were discussing about the green and responsible investment, and the decision made by the boards of the corporates, advanced companies, and also the open-minded for the board of directors toward the sustainable or previously green bonds issuance. And the 10 members, 10 regulators, we discussed the first of the green bond and the ASEAN green bond standards. And for green bond standards, this is the very first initiative of the ICMF to facilitate ASEAN capital markets in tapping the green finance to support sustainable regional growth and to meet investor need for the green investment. And this is a part of the ICMF or ASEAN broader efforts in developing green finance for ASEAN. And for this one, this very first one, that we also studied the ICMA, International Capital Market Association Green Bond Standards and Green Bond Principles. And we observed ICMA Green Bond Principles to develop ASEAN Green Bond Standards. It means that the ASEAN Green Bond Standards with international best practices in green. And then the ICMF, we developed social bond standards and sustainability bond standards, which quite adapt the demand from the investor investor outside ASEAN about the standards of the suite of the ASEAN bond standards, social green and sustainability bond standards are already in place. And we do also have the action plan from the period of 2021 to 2025. These standards and sustainability is tailored into our action plan, and the action plan is very visible. That you can get the information from the website of the ICMF. And about the actual issuance of green bonds in the region, and the green bonds labeled ASEAN Green Bond Standards, and also the bonds issued very much in line with ASEAN Green Bond Standards. So we observe we see that the very developing demand from the markets for green bonds in ASEAN, and also for the sovereignty green bonds of each member state in ASEAN region. And so what we have done in terms of the roadmap, and also reports in each pillar of the ASEAN financial market. For the ICMF side, for the securities market regulators side, we had a roadmap for ASEAN sustainable capital markets, and for the banking sector, we do have the report on the roles of ASEAN central banks in managing climate and environment-related risks. And for the working group of the capital market development, which we have the ASEAN capital market regulators, we have the banking sectors, that we do have report on promoting sustainable finance in ASEAN. So how about the roadmap for ASEAN sustainable capital markets? The roadmap was endorsed by the ASEAN finance ministers and central bank governors in April 2019. This roadmap is to promote a common vision and comprehensive direction towards an ecosystem for sustainable capital market development, as well as an ASEAN asset class for sustainable investment. So it's really a kind of the guidelines for the whole capital markets in the region, working toward a sustainable agenda for ASEAN, and also to facilitate the understanding of the investor outside ASEAN about the orientation of the ASEAN capital market toward the sustainability in the region. So in these two reports, we do have the talk about the transition pathway. And the transition pathway is the level of nature and economic and industrial development among ASEAN member countries. And we observe the different levels of development of the economies of ASEAN member states, and also recognize the importance of the transition for ASEAN, especially for the developing economies in the region. And along with supporting the green agenda of ASEAN is also supporting the green agenda of each member state toward a sustainable development of the ASEAN capital market. So as I discussed previously about the ASEAN action plan, so I think toward a sustainable capital market is also into the action plan. Seeing the actual actions that we plan to take for the period of 2021 to 2025, and to supporting our understanding of for investors and issuers in the region, we have ASEAN SDG bond toolkit that developed by the ASEAN member, and also with the support from the ADB. And for the current work that we are doing, we have ASEAN taxonomy. And I know that some of the webinars on our virtual conferences in the region have been talking about ASEAN taxonomy and ASEAN taxonomy board. This is a joint initiative of ASEAN finance regulators to promote sustainable activities and investment. Meaning that we have there in both have the Securities, we have central banks there, and we have finance ministries there, covering all aspects of the financial markets in this one. So the ASEAN taxonomy board was established first to develop the main, and maintain and promote multi-tier ASEAN taxonomy for sustainable finance. The first version was launched in November 2021, and quite the same day of the COP26 in the UK. And version 2 is on the way. A lot of the consultation meetings and discussion with market participants and market facing have been done to get the comments from market participants, not only within the ASEAN member states, but also investors outside ASEAN. So just quite a brief information of what we as ASEAN capital market regulators have been doing for green agenda of ASEAN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG Dzung. It looks like the capital market regulators have been very busy. And from what I can see, the capital market regulators have been taking the lead in providing frameworks to support sustainable finance in ASEAN. And this obviously will benefit both issuers and investors, because that sort of guidance will provide clarity, and it will also provide certainty. But it's interesting, what you say about addressing the key areas, and that is not just looking at how proceeds of financing can be used towards something that is green, but also on the transition. So you are looking at how to build a transition pathway as well, and I think that's extremely important. You talked about the many dimensions you're looking at, which includes the SDG bond toolkit, which covers more than the environment. And I just wanted to point out one thing that you raised. You talk about the ASEAN Green Bond Standards, the ASEAN Sustainability Bond Standards, and the ASEAN Social Bond Standards. And I understand that to date, these standards, which were issued at the end of 2017 and 2018, have been used to raise 26 billion in labeled bonds, that's US dollars, and a further 3 billion in specifically aligned bonds. That's 30 billion of fundraising done using these standards. So congratulations. I think that's a pretty good achievement, and certainly it creates an asset class for ASEAN and an opportunity for issuers to tap the market. And a lot of this actually has come also from Thailand, I understand, and Thailand has been very ripe in terms of the sustainable finance activity. Kun Jamjun, I'd like to invite you to share with us a bit about what Thailand's been doing, because I think this is going to be of great benefit to the audience.
Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to share with you the ESG experience from Thailand perspective. And thanks to ASEAN Climate Governance Network and Sustainable Finance Institute Asia for inviting me to this webinar. For my first slide, it will provide you the key event from global actions to Thailand action to prevent the acceleration of climate change. Thailand has a role to play in supporting the transition to low carbon economy. As you can see from the slide, Thailand also put in place many actions from the joint statement Sustainable Finance Initiative in August last year, where the 5 key regulators in financial sector, including the Ministry of Finance, the Bank of Thailand, the Thai SEC, where I saw the member of Thai SEC joining our session today as well, the Office of Insurance Commission, and the Stock Exchange of Thailand, have joined force to set the direction and framework for driving sustainable finance across Thai financial sector. Then the announcement of carbon neutrality and net zero target by our Prime Minister during COP26. And this year, Thailand will be the host for APEC 2022 in November. The sustainable finance topic become one of the important agendas since APEC preparation last year and beginning of this year, where Eugene, I met with you physically for the first time. Yeah. Eugene also attended the APEC preparation event in Thailand as well. This year, another important ESG-related milestone is on the recent announcement from the Bank of Thailand that just issued the directional paper on transitioning toward environmental sustainability under the new Thai financial landscape. Subsequently, within August the same month, the member of Thai Bank Association, including Krungsri, also pledged our intention to drive for the better and greener economy. We realize the urgency of the bank involvement to help address the climate change action and our role in supporting Thailand's national sustainability commitment. Next slide, please. As for capital market, we are seeing the collaboration across relevant regulators in Thai financial industry. The pictures shown here are some of the key ESG milestones. On the left-hand side, the Thai Ministry of Finance issued the first 15-year sustainability bond in August 2020, and it was timely to support COVID relief program under the Social Eligible Project and Clean Transportation for Thailand Infrastructure. Today, the outstanding of this benchmark transaction already exceeds 200 billion Thai baht, or almost $6 billion. The sustainability bond from the Kingdom of Thailand also listed on the Luxembourg Exchange for the ESG Green Symbolic. The joint statement on Sustainable Finance Initiative for Thailand that I already mentioned in my previous slide. And on the right-hand side, the 43 leading financial organizations in Thailand, including commercial bank, life insurance, asset management company, together with the policymaker, sign on the statement of commitment for sustainable Thailand. This reaffirms Thailand's commitment to the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, or UN SDG. Next slide. This slide shows the global development of sustainable finance that maintained rapid growth over the past year. We believe that the growth will continue given the increasing ESG awareness. Not only the volume growth that you can see, the sustainable finance now extends far beyond the typical green bond that were introduced at the early stage. Currently, the market has expanded into other sustainable finance product categories, including social bond, sustainability bond, and recently for Thailand, sustainability linked type. The COVID pandemic has been the key driver for the increase of social and sustainability bond issuance volume to support the need for sustainable economic recovery. Next slide, focus for Thailand. The ESG bond market has experienced a strong growth over the past 3 to 4 years. The ESG issuance by sovereigns and commercial banks paved the way for other leading Thai corporates. And in 2021, the ESG issuance volume reached a new record high of 173.8 billion, or about $5 billion. And year-to-date July 2022 reached Thai baht 98 billion, or almost 2.8 billion in US dollar term. And just last week, Thai Exim, the Export-Import Bank of Thailand, and Bangkok Expressway and Metro issued in total the additional Thai baht 10 billion or almost US dollar 300 million US dollar 300 million. So this year we already reached 100 billion issuance in total. However, if we compare the ESG new issuance as a percentage of total new bond issuance each year in Thai market, the percentage is still less than 1%. So I believe there will be the good growth opportunity of ESG bond in Thai bond market, given the increasing awareness of the people and the collaborative effort among regulators leading corporate in Thailand to strive for the greener economy. Next slide, please. This slide will talk about the sustainable finance product, where Thailand has catch up global trend quickly. And we have almost all kinds of sustainable finance product category, from use of proceeds-based transaction, green loan, green bond, social bond, sustainability bond. Last year in May, in the middle, Thai SEC announced the sustainability linked bond regulation, with Thai Union as the first issuer under the new regulation, where I understand that Khun Yongyut also attended the webinar last month. For sustainability linked bond, it's good for the company that do not have specific green or social underlying project. The proceeds can be used for general corporate purposes. The bond characteristic will be linked to the achievement of predefined sustainable performance target, with the corresponding adjustment of coupon in bond characteristic, whether they achieve or do not achieve the target that they set. We have so far the three issuers that issue sustainability bond in Thailand, where I will mention in the next slide. For the new transition bond, to support the company that in the heavy or brown industry that want to achieve the greener, it is still under the development and discussion with our local regulators. Next slide, please. This slide shows the story of the first sustainability linked bond journey of Thai Union. The left-hand picture is a memorable one from the one-on-one meeting among Thai Union, GPF, key ESG investor in Thailand, where Dr. Man was there too, and Krungsri team. This was considered as a kick-off our sustainability linked bond journey prior to the series of working level meeting to discuss on detailed transaction and KPI before we launched the transaction successfully. I would like to emphasize that the top leaders and the CEO of the three organizations were together. So tone at the top is very, very important for the ESG journey and help create ESG culture. The series of sustainability linked loan and bond of Thai Union have been finally complete successfully, where in 2021, Thai Union achieved Thai baht 27 billion or almost US dollar 1 billion refinancing in the sustainable finance area. Next slide. So list out here are the three SLB issuers in Thailand with their respective KPIs that relevant to the business and linked to the reduction of greenhouse gas emission target under the framework. For Thailand, we still do not have the local ESG external reviewer and still need to rely upon the expertise from international reviewer. So one of the key challenges that I'm seeing is about the gap of international standard versus ASEAN or Thai standard when we need to work on the sustainability link on transaction. And next slide. This one, I would say that the key benefit of sustainable finance business to survive in the long run, ESG might not be longer a choice, but a necessity. Sustainable finance therefore become increasingly important as part of the overall funding strategy, where I summarize 4 benefits here. First, it helps create positive corporate profile. Second, with a clear ESG corporate strategy that align with UN SDG, the company will have the clear corporate direction for management to implement and create positive impact. Third, on the internal staff empowerment. This day, especially for the young generation, they want to enjoy their job, feel appreciated, and make a positive impact. So when you create the culture focused on sustainability, it can help attract young talents and help deepen international collaboration with the ongoing disclosure and data analysis. Last one, on the financial benefit. The company that have strong commitment to ESG can attract the attention of investor and lender. Investor and lender are gaining interest in company with the ESG program in place over those without. And as I mentioned in my earlier slide, for Thailand, the member of Thai Bank Association just declared their intention to follow the Bank of Thailand regulatory framework with the sustainable banking guideline on responsible lending. So ESG lending policy is underway. For next slide, this one, I think Dzung already mentioned in terms of the standard for sustainable or ESG finance product. So let me recap. This slide show the standard and principle and best practices guideline that the green citizen can use as reference under ICMA or ACMF for bond transaction and LMA or Asia Pacific Loan Market Association for loan transaction. This guideline provide details of best practices for the specific use of proceeds, project evaluation, reporting, etc. Although the guideline mentioned the requirement will be on a voluntary basis, but be mindful that investors in this ESG environment would require and consider as a need to have, not a nice to have, before they make any investment decision. And on my final slide, from the standard and best practices guideline that I just mentioned, Krungsri, MUFG, come up with the step diagram to show that every company can be part of sustainable finance journey. Starting from top left box, ask the board to give direction. You can ask team to check, does the company have any green investment in pipeline? For example, company may consider install the solar panel or solar rooftop, or invest more in the renewable project, or would like to improve the efficiency in their production facility. Then, if yes, then the company may consider borrowing green loan or issuing green bond to support energy efficiency program, and that align with the UN SDG number 13 on the climate action. This is just a starting point, but detailed discussion would also need to be elaborate to the second party or external verifier to give the opinion before you come to the public transaction. And if no immediate project, the board can also consider putting in place the ESG KPI and sustainability performance target as part of the corporate strategy. Note that the target has to be robust in our bottom box, ambitious and relevant to the business, where the external expert or what we call second party opinion can provide the opinion. There are benchmarking approach when selecting KPIs, and I give 3 alphabets here for easy reference. What I call is HIS, H-I-S. H, the company can compare yourself with historical or the past 3-year performance. Let's say if you have already achieved 2% greenhouse gas reduction last year, and you want to set KPI for the next 5 years. If you set the number of 2% reduction target, which is the same as last year or the best year, this would not be considered as ambitious goal or ambitious target by external reviewer. The double growth may be ambitious enough, and the director should give the blessing to all the team members for the ambitious target. When you think about yourself as ambitious, you also need to compare with I, which is the industry peer. After looking at yourself, the company also has to compare with industry peer to set the target as well. And the last one, S, stand for science-based scenario, where in your respective country will have the organization to support detailed calculation. For Thailand, we have worked closely with Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management Organization or TGO to provide data to support this. And this end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Jamjun. Well, it looks like there's a lot being done right now, and we can see how climate change is shaping the capital markets or the direction of the capital markets. And of course, this is very important for all business leaders and those charged with governance, because many people continue to tap the capital markets directly or indirectly for funding. And that climate agenda will actually determine the access to financing and the price of that financing. But hearing what DG Dzung and Jamjun have said, it's obvious that it's not just the climate change agenda that's shaping the capital markets. In fact, actually, you can see the capital markets coming in now to shape the climate change agenda as well. It's providing the sort of support that we're looking for. I just wanted to ask Dr. Mann, how do you see the capital markets evolving against the backdrop of climate change as an investor?
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I would say that, as Jamjun mentioned, is a tone from the top that GPF, Secretary General, they are supporting the ESG activity decade ago, and we be a member of UNPRI in 2006, and until now, I mean, every Secretary General they are support the ESG. So right now, I think about the equity investment. Right now, people are fully aware of that, and most investors they have some investment process where they integrate the financial factor and ESG factor into analysis first before they investment. Right now, there are more and more gradually shift into the bond market as well. As Kun Jamjun mentioned, I mean the trend right now, we can say that until now we invest about 32 billion baht, or about $1 billion in a governmental sustainability bond, sustainable link bond, and green bond and social bond right now. So about sustainability bond is we invest in COVID related, and also the green transportation last year and this year quite a lot right now. And for about sustainability linked bond, we do invest in a Thai Union. So it's gonna be we give a KPI. They have some KPI to meet. If they can meet a KPI, we're gonna pay. We're gonna receive some coupon with some discount around 10 basis point below that amount. But if they cannot, we're gonna receive a coupon plus around 10 basis point above the coupon level. I mean, that's the way we support the SBI, I mean sustainable linked bond. We also do some green bond in other Asian country, but it's not quite a large amount. But I mean the number, the figure provided by many country in Asia, they are provide more and more, and also some social bond as well. I mean that's the development that we are invest right now. Yeah, and we intend to continue investment into this kind of bond in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Mann. So it looks like right now, the sustainability agenda and the climate change agenda is actually getting integrated. I wouldn't even say it's incorporated, it's being integrated into the capital markets. And that obviously creates a new paradigm, which the regulators, being the guardians of the capital markets, now must respond to. DG Dzung, I was wondering whether you had a view on this.
Thank you. And I think these changes and also the climate change and anything toward the sustainability is really shaping this capital market. And from the director point of view, we see that we need to do something in response to this one. And along with delivering the traditional market, now we have to adapt new things with the climate change in the capital market. It's not in the world, it's the climate change in the capital market, adapting this one. The change for the investor, the change from the issuers, and the change of the rules.
Thank you, DG Dzung. You raised you raised this really interesting point about,
yeah, but also facilitator.
Right. So you raised this point about the role of the facilitator, the issuer, and the investor. I'm just wondering, you know, from a regulator's perspective, do you see yourself as a facilitator, or do you see yourself as a driver?
Facilitator, this one,
right?
This phase.
And that's really interesting, because then I want to ask Kun Jamjun, because you are the intermediary, you are standing between the issuer and the investor, and you have the facilitator who's a regulator. So how do you see the capital markets moving forward with this climate change agenda in mind into the future? What do you see changing?
Yeah, certainly the Thai capital market have been evolved on the back of climate action responsibility. And I would say that from our side, the regulator, not just be the facilitator, they may be the big pusher as well, and the key driver that have been shaping the evolution of the Thai capital market. Not just regulator, the key the quality investor like GPF that would like to see the positive impact and higher commitment on climate action by corporate and financial institutions. The local regulator also encourage the ESG disclosure as well. On the regulatory front that I'm seeing, for example, the Stock Exchange of Thailand that require ESG disclosure as part of annual report. And if we scope down to the debt capital market, the Thai SEC also grant the waiver of SEC filing for any new ESG bond issuance. And for issuer side, we see the company that have early adopt ESG corporate strategy seems to enjoy and get good support from both, not just investor group, but also lender and the bank as well. For arranger side, like myself, we have to be up to date in terms of ESG regulatory framework, whether it's going to be local or international, from the Bank of Thailand, Thai SEC, the development of new technologies that we need to live with, the bridge of financing team and the engineering team, the new technical or I would say the engineering wording that I need to learn and try to become the sustainability finance expert. Also to help issuer, I also need to do more homework, do more research by getting information from our MUFG counterpart. Regularly visit ICMA, CBI or ADB website to get the latest ESG information, how other markets have developed in this sustainable finance context. And I would say that we are seeing the variety of sustainable finance products that we have these days to underline the company ESG commitment, from green bond that first start and first launched in Thailand in 2018 to sustainability linked bond in 2021. The sharing session that we conduct to corporate and investor to ensure they understand the best practices and can take part of the ESG development in Thai market. And we would like to have more and more people that are involved in this ESG journey too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kun Jamjun. Actually, I think DG Dzung was being very humble. In fact, actually, DG Dzung, for those of us who have worked with you, we know that you have also been a major driving force on the sustainability agenda, from the capital market regulators grouping to the industry advisory panel to the ASEAN Taxonomy Board. Kun Jamjun, you talked just now in your presentation and in answering the question just now, that if we don't have if corporates are not aligning themselves to the climate change agenda, they can be excluded from the supply chains. And you talked about the benefits of using sustainable finance in your presentation just now. And one very interesting thing I found there was that you said using sustainable finance can help create a culture focus on sustainability and the environment. So apart from this, do you think that using sustainable finance can help bolster a company's credibility on sustainability with its stakeholders? Does it give it that extra credibility when its stakeholders look at it? And as an intermediary, I can see that you're also trying to shape this agenda. So how do you help your stakeholders, how do you help your customers or your clients use sustainable finance to bolster their credibility?
Okay, so for the first question about the sustainable finance, whether it can help bolster the company credibility. I think, yes, indeed, sustainable finance can help support the company to raise the bar and build up the company credibility in the long run. To take part of sustainability journey, the company require good disclosure standard, and this will benefit to stakeholders who are hungry to understand the sustainability development. A credible, transparent that align with UN SDG, which will give good framework of the sustainable purpose and the objective of the company, what they want to do, and to what they can achieve or not in the short term to long term. And this will help the company in the long run from lender perspective. And how can I, as the arranger, help them to do this? For all transactions that we put in place, the sustainable finance angle, whether it is the use of proceeds or sustainability link type, the clear discussion about guidelines and best practices will be shared and discussed with the issuer prior to engaging them into sustainable finance transaction. Series of sharing and one-on-one meeting will be conducted to allow issuer to share their ESG story and strategy to investor before making any investment decision. I would say that data is the key ingredient to the right ESG investment decision. Therefore, investors need a good set of ESG information. The successful sustainable finance issuance normally will gain good attraction from public as well. So the regulator have recognized the extra effort of those who took part in sustainable finance journey. They have put in place, like for Thailand, we have set award on the sustainable category. And for the Thai Bond Market Association, where our Thai bond will be listed on this Thai BMA, they also set up another award category on Best Sustainability Bond Award. So I think this is something that, and as the arranger, we also help our issuer to pitch for those awards as well to gain the market recognition. So that, I mean, it's the answer to this question for me.
Thank you, Kun Jamjun. Dr. Ma, I want to take what Kun Jamjun said a step further. Now, there's a big debate going on that fund managers should be focusing on maximizing returns for their investors and not promoting the green agenda, the sustainability agenda. I mean, we see this happening in some of the Republican states in the US. What's your view on this? Why do you invest in green instruments?
Well, I think I have to tell you that pension fund is a long-term investor. We see that we call that a universal owner because we invest in many type of asset class around the world, and we also do a cross-generation investor. It's not only a view for 5 to 10 years, but I mean for more than a decade ahead. So it is quite a long term. So why we don't create, I mean, environment in E and S, I mean, environment and social are better because this ecosystem gonna help build up a sustainable return in the long run. Yeah, we used to have a single objective of maximize return for the portfolio, but from now on, we put 2 objectives in our investment policy statement. Yeah, we call it optimum return. So I mean, it's good when compared to the risk. And we also to be a good world citizenship of the world as well. So I mean, there is a 2 objective for our investment philosophy. So it's a balance between financial return and ESG. Right now, we have some integration process for equity, right? We put some important of financial scoring around 65%, and ESG is around 35%, and it's differ among industry. Like banking and finance, they are more focused on governance on G. And about the energy company, it focused large allocation on E environment. So we have a scoring to choose the universe of the security that we're gonna invest. So about the equity, it's quite apparent that financial and ESG, they are win-win situation, because a good company, good ESG security gonna give a higher return. So it's a win-win situation. So it developed very fast. So once we have a portfolio, there's no question to answer the member that it's yield a lower return, because it's yield a better return. That's approved from many institutions like MSCI or S&P or FTSE. We do that. But for bond, it's a little bit harder, because as you know that a good corporate bond, it means that a lower spread than other. Yeah. So if we focus much on this portion, it might not have a full development on this one. I think in case that we want to have a portfolio of the ESG bond, we should create a benchmark, a fair benchmark for them. Yeah. So if they have a fair benchmark, I'm sure that a corporate bond, ESG focused corporate bond portfolio going to be increased a lot in the future. 2 years ago, we talked with the Thai Bond Market Association to create a benchmark for the industry for Thailand already. So I think it's a time when we are ready. There are more a variety of bond in the market. We're gonna have some ESG focus for corporate bond portfolio. Yeah. Right now, I mean, 5 years ago, we already have a equity ESG focused equity portfolio already. Yeah, around 1 billion baht in that fund. Yeah. So yeah, as you asked me, and we have both objective, have a balance between financial return and ESG. Yeah, I mean, two components.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mann. It's interesting what you say about the risks, even in the bond market, because I was reading a piece of research which examined a conventional bond and an ESG related bond issued by the same corporate. And in a time of stress, the ESG bond actually performed better. It was more stable in terms of the pricing. So there are definitely benefits there. DG Dzung, you've heard from an issuer and an investor about their perspectives. And based on this, I know you said that the regulators look at themselves as facilitators, but what do you think the most important thing for regulators to do today is to bring the investors and the issuers closer together?
Yeah, so as I said, that we are the facilitator for the green agenda. And the most important role of the regulators today, I think, that to set up a standardized level playing field for all market participants with the standard, transparency, and credibility, because they see that it's the interest for all. But for regulators, we are looking into the ultimate beneficiaries of this one. It's the environment and also the public. So we all have the funds management companies there. We have responsible investment there. We have issuers there, and with our market intermediaries. But we need to have a level playing for all market participants with standard, transparency, and credibility. I think is the most important for green agenda.
Thank you, DG Dzung. So I mean, we've talked a lot about the benefits, right, of green financing and how the capital markets want to support green financing, but I'm sure it's not all that easy. I'm sure there are challenges as well. And just now, Kun Jamjun, you mentioned in your presentation about the motivation of issuers. So I wanted to ask you, I'm sure the audience is curious as well, what do you see as the biggest motivation so far? Is it easy access to financing? Is it because it helps provide them the guide rails for discipline for their own ESG agenda? What's really driving them? And the second question I have to ask you is, what about the challenges the issuers face? I'm sure there are a lot. What are some of the biggest challenges and how have they been overcoming them? And this is really an important question because I'm sure the audience, especially the directors of our listed companies, will be encountering these challenges one day.
Thank you, Eugene. For me, what I see as the biggest motivation, first and foremost, is the ESG megatrend and the ESG culture that we are now facing. There are increasing number of stakeholders that talking about ESG and would like corporate or financial institution to take the climate action responsibility. What I see, as I mentioned earlier, the ESG may not be a choice for a number of companies that have the global presence or doing the business overseas during this ESG evaluation, but it will be a kind of the have to do things. If you miss it, you may be lag behind others or lost competitiveness. For example, Thai Union that I mentioned, the global player, the leader of seafood processor, they have the export in European and US market. So they have put in place a kind of ESG strategy under Sea Change program 8 years back. And this provide them with the competitive advantage over the competitors when they export to overseas market. And you can see the financial result of the company that record a very impressive result post their ESG activity that they have done. Also, the upcoming of Scope 3 supply chain and possibility that I think is also push the import and export company that need to think more on the ESG development plan. For me, I am seeing a listed company in Thailand as well that come to talk more about what they should do in order to protect them from the CBAM, upcoming CBAM, which is also part of the tax regime or the potential tariff that may prevent them to export into those countries. So the competitiveness that they will be lag behind is something that they, the director may worry about. And what I'm seeing as the challenge and how the issuer have overcome. The first challenge that I see is many corporates do not know how to start off. Something that this is the same as CSR activity, which is not. Or maybe they are in the remote industry to the ESG business. For how to overcome this challenge, I think the key is guiding them and sharing case study, bring the expert from our MUFG or ADB to provide advice of how other companies in the same industry do it. However, the process may take time for the company to take part of the ESG journey. This requires step-by-step change. I mean, need to be like some kind of invest time. Our ESG transaction in Thailand, some transaction need a year or 2 years to come to close, but some deal I think longer than that. So I would say that ESG is a journey, and that's the challenge that I'm seeing. Another challenge on the ESG disclosure requirement and cost, where I mean tone from the top, that I would like to emphasize again is very important. When sometimes I talk to the working level, they said that, oh, the second party opinion cost is too high. But if we compare to CSR activity that the company have to pay, it's compare as this one as the very little. They need to carry the additional burden in their view, so they do not want to move. The blessing from the senior management is also required. And how to overcome, I would say we need to embrace ESG culture in the organization and make that and make the one that involved in the ESG process get good recognition in the company. Last one is on the gap between local and international standard that Eugene, I mentioned to you many times during our IAP study, chat and sharing. Although some companies that we view them as the best in class operation locally, but still cannot meet some sustainable finance criteria by international verifier. For this one, I still do not know the way to overcome this perfectly, but will suggest issuer to find the right ESG advisor or verifier as their ESG partner and who are willing to take and to try to understand their business and Thai industry landscape. So that's for me.
Thank you very much, Kun Jamjun. You raised some very interesting points, and if we do have some time to come back to them, I'd certainly like to revisit some of the points you raised. So, Dr. Mann, we know that climate change is still relatively new to everyone, and Kun Jamjun mentioned that it's new to the issuers, it's new to the intermediaries, and certainly it's new to the investing community. How can issuers and intermediaries make it easier for investors to invest? Is there something they can do to help investors make decisions faster and better?
Yes, of course. I think the first thing issuers should do is to declare. State their policy statement first. What is their plan, and if they had done some ESG project, they should disclosure all the relevant figure to investor. So, well, it might not be, according to our experience when do engagement, not every company they can do, a complete ESG issue on that because of economic scale. But at least they show us, their analysis how the cost effective affect the company. That's how we understand, and we try to support them. I think that's the first thing that we like to receive from the issuer. Yeah, and we also need some the taxonomy. How much effect for each aspect of the ESG, so we can really know how much discount we can share with them. Yeah, 2 years ago we worked with a asset company in Asia, and they try to calculate the impact of each factor in E and S and G, and then they combine into the total net effect for each company. So we really know their cost, because every fund or pension fund, they also say that they are a good investor. They invest in a very good ESG, but it's not comparable. But once we have a reliable taxonomy, so we can have a good benchmark of good cost of capital. So we really know how much we're gonna give them some discount on the coupon for each issue. That's we need from maybe non-profit organizer, or the third party, or maybe from the broker that we're dealing with. Those broker, they should provide some view and some concern for each security that they're gonna sell to us. I think that's gonna be good. But however, we also need some third party to help us align and provide the reliable data, to compare. Because we are investors, we have to compare each security and put into the portfolio. So it's more important to make a comparison. So I think we need a good data from issuer, the third party, and a broker. So that's gonna help investor to invest. Correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mann. It appears that we have some challenges, which as a group, whether it's regulator, it's issuer, it's investor, it's intermediary, we have to work together to overcome. And obviously, one of the key things is how we are going to build the ecosystem together. And from what all of you are saying, and I know I've had a lot of conversations with DG Dzung about this as well, that ecosystem must have three key pillars. The first is, like you said, Dr. Mann, we need a taxonomy because we need a common language. The second thing that all of you have raised at one point or another is actually transition. So we need to be really clear what transition is. And Dr. Mann, both you and Kun Jamjun have talked about the need for clarity and transparency. And DG Dzung has talked about the need for that clarity and transparency to also be credible. So clearly, we need to have a very clear transition approach that everyone accepts. And the third was mentioned by DG Dzung just now, which is disclosure. We need to be able to have good disclosure. And some of you also mentioned that disclosure is imperative for people to make the right decisions. So DG Dzung, I wanted to come back to you and ask you, given all this, and given what Kun Jamjun and Dr. Mann has said, how do you think regulators can address the challenges that Kun Jamjun and Dr. Mann have raised? I mean, I know you're all coming up with a lot of frameworks and support, but what do you think you can do to immediately address some of these challenges? And the second is that this transition issue is really critical. Dr. Mann mentioned about the taxonomy, and I know you're on the ASEAN Taxonomy Board as a member. How do you see the taxonomy being able to not just support decision-making for sustainable investments, but also for transition? I know there are a lot of questions in there, but I think they're all interrelated, and I hope you can try and start the ball rolling on this.
Thank you. You really raised the solution for the challenges that Kun Nanjun and Dr. Mann discussed about the it is a journey. So there is a journey that is there need to have a guide and transparency. They need to have metrics and rules and standards for transparency, for disclosures, and for database, for the reference of the third party or second opinion, database for the services providers. So disclosure is something the regulators are working on, and taxonomy is also the very good solution for all these challenges, because they include standards, metrics, and threshold for reference of the second opinion or third party or assurers, and also a base for the disclosure requirements in the rules. So in the immediate future, that the disclosures in the requirements of the law is the main focus of the regulators. So that everything's there for investor issuers, and also the standardized frameworks for issuers for investors to understand. But in the reason, I think for the question about the transition, it's also the main focus for regulators for now, because we all know that all the countries commit or will commit the net zero to net zero as a destination. So from now to that destination is transition for these countries. Whether the transition, the period of time is shorter than the others, but the transition is still very important. So it is really very important for ASEAN and in emerging market in ASEAN for the transition as understood of the way to the destination of net zero commitment.
Thank you, DG Dzung.
And
right, please proceed.
Okay, so for this one, that as Jamjun talk about standards. So regulators need to develop metric standards internationally recognized, whether regional or international should be recognized, because surely we do receive the comments and opinions from market participants about different standards and different taxonomies. Needs to have a standardized or internationally recognized standards, even for disclosures. And for directors, we need to have a diverse range of tools to support and encourage transition finance. It's not limited to one or two, because the tools are being developed by not only the regulators but also market participants. So we need to adopt it as to adopt new technologies in the market. Thank you.
Thank you, DG Dzung. DG Dzung, can I pick up on a point you raised on the taxonomy? And you said that the transition for different countries will be different. And I take it that the transition for different sectors in different countries will be different as well. So if I'm a listed company, or if I'm a borrower and I want to actually raise money, how does this affect me with regard to the taxonomy? I mean, does the taxonomy provide different options or different pathways for transition, or does it only have one threshold and you either qualify or you don't? What are the ASEAN regulators looking at?
We are looking at the different threshold for, because we have to accept the different levels of development of and different period of time for the towards the destination, different time of commitment of net zero of ASEAN member states. As long as we will come to the final common destination for all member states.
So what you're suggesting is that, for example, if the taxonomy, let's talk about, say, electricity generation. So the taxonomy will have different thresholds for different countries. For example, for country A, I could be very advanced. So I set the emissions criteria is 100 grams per kilo hour. For country B, it's 200 grams. And for country C, it's 300. And they can choose how they are going to adopt the thresholds.
I think that it should be a range. It's not one point to start with, a range. Within that range, the member state will choose. Otherwise, we have too many thresholds.
Right.
That is not really internationally recognized.
So what you will set is a series of thresholds that are fixed, and then member states choose which threshold they want to adopt. And that's going to be really important, I guess.
Right.
And that's going to be really important, I guess, when structuring instruments. So, Kun Jamjun, you talked about the sustainability-linked loans and the sustainability-linked bonds just now. I guess these instruments will benefit from having a taxonomy with thresholds like this, and they'll enable issuers and intermediaries to be able to structure more realistic deals. Would that be the case? And I also wanted to ask you, how useful have you found instruments like the SLLs and the SLBs?
Yeah, I think
it is.
for,
Sorry, DG Dzung, we lost you.
Okay, Jamjun, go ahead, please. Kun Jamjun.
Okay, so how I feel the SLL or SLB, whether it has useful. I think everyone, this is the SLL and SLB is the new development of the sustainable finance product, and everyone can use SLL and SLB for their to support their corporate strategy. And if they have transparent sustainability credential and incorporate the forward-looking ESG in their corporate strategy, that would be a big plus in order to take part of these sustainability linked loan or linked bond. They to take part of SLL or SLB, the key performance indicator, and the predefine the sustainability performance target have to be set. And I think this is the good thing that finance team will know the direction and work together with the engineer part with the collaboration effort to drive forward on the GHG carbon, the greenhouse gas reduction emission target. The KPI that the company need to have should be measurable and quantifiable. And I would say that for SLL and SLB, unlike this product, unlike the green bond or green loan instrument, where the proceeds must be applied towards specific eligible green project, right? The proceed from SLL or SLB, it's actually good for the company that want to deploy the money into other general corporate purpose to support their business growth. And the company will either be rewarded for achieving, and as Dr. Mann mentioned, or penalized for missing the target, typically by way of interest rate adjust up or adjust down. So that's I think it's very useful given that they can take the proceed can be used for general corporate purpose, and this is a big plus for all the corporate.
Thank you, Khun Jamjun. So, Khun Jamjun, what you're saying is that the traditional bond model which we're used to, which is the use of proceeds for green investments, is restrictive in the sense you can only use it for one particular purpose or one particular project. But the transition financing instruments like SLLs and SLBs actually allow the money of the funds to be used to support the transition and for more general purposes, and that really helps that journey along. So I see the value here, and definitely I know a lot of people who say that you need this sort of funding if you're actually going to transition, and there's no way you can flick a switch and turn green overnight. So this is really important. But there are also people who say that transition financing gives a lot of room for greenwashing. Dr. Mann, I know you've invested in transition instruments, but are you suspicious of them?
Yeah, yes, of course. I mean, I think the main challenge right now, three main challenges. The first one is about the data transparency. The second one is about the reliable taxonomy. And I think the third one is about the greenwashing. So that's what we are still concerned on that. But I think once we have a very good standard of it, it will be passed through. I want to mention a bit about the taxonomy. I mean, well, a couple of years ago that I mentioned earlier that we have a discuss with some asset management. What they do is that, for example, they try to collect the cost of the carbon emission all around the world and how much it costs. Then they try to break down into activity, right? I mean, how much from a power plant, how much from a vehicle, they break down into activity. And each activity, they break down into company by the proportion of the stock market in MSCI. So they know that, I mean, the cost of carbon emission from each company, how much percentage point. They do the same thing for every aspect, E, S, and G. So they're going to be both a positive impact and negative impact. So the net impact is going to be the total taxonomy cost for each that company. So as we are an investor, when we have a portfolio, we can compare, I mean, the total premium or total cost for all ESG. Yeah, so that's going to be the same benchmark. If we have the very good standard of taxonomy, I mean, every fund manager, every portfolio going to report the same language. I mean, and then they can comparable who's do better than the other. So I think that's maybe because it's like a risk budget for the portfolio management for ESG risk budget. Yeah, I think that's if it's gonna develop more successful in the future, I think we as a GPF might apply that to our portfolio as well.
Thank you, Dr. Mann. So we have a question from the floor. We know that there are a lot of oil and gas companies and fossil fuel companies out there, and of course, everyone's moving into renewables and trying to phase out fossil fuels. So we have a question on how banks and financial institutions can help guide and partner companies involved in the fossil fuel sector to actually transform themselves, and what are the key steps that they have to take to actually have a positive impact on the environment, since investors are looking at this. Jamjun, I think a lot of this would fall squarely in the work you do every day. So I thought maybe I could ask you first, followed by Dr. Mann and DG Dzung.
Yeah, I think thank you, Eugene, for this one. It's actually the question that we also received from Thai corporate that in the brown industry as well, and want to transform themselves into greener company. It's not an easy question to answer, I would say, but what we are seeing is that we have the regulator, and including Dzung, that can what he says facilitator, but I think the key man behind the scene to work closely with all ASEAN members to develop the transition finance standard. And we are now like on the regulator front. We are also checking and discussing with the Thai SEC on any potential of the handbook similar to other international country on the transition finance handbook, so that those companies in the brown industry can be part of this transition finance journey. Also from issuer side or potential borrower, they also, what I would suggest them is that check with engage a kind of external reviewer to understand the development of the new technology, carbon capture, storage, or anything that they can do in order to enhance their production facility to be the cleaner company, or investing more on the renewable energy and make the commitment toward the transition. So this is something that we work to side at the similar time. First, on the issuer side, try to educate them, engage them to talk to second party opinion, and also engage our MUFG network from the sector team to provide details of other countries' transition standard, or how they do in other European or US country, the new technology, the hydrogen, and also the clean energy that are coming up. And at the same time, the Thai SEC also will be part of the key supporter to develop the similar standard among our ASEAN for us to be able to allow them to take part. Yeah.
Thank you, Jamjun. Dr. Mann, how about from an investor's perspective? Will you invest in fossil fuel companies to help them transform?
Yes, of course. I think, well, even though we are not the company who has a direct action on those issues, we are, as an institution investor, we do support this activity to happen. So what we can do is we can allocate, investment according to the scoring. That was our duty to do supporting. And we also, the main activity that we can do is we do engagement for the company. Right now we set up 100% of the company that we invest are engaged by us. And the way we engage is not that the bad company that we find out, we not do divest all the investment out. We don't do like that. But I think we believe that We keep engagement every year, and together with our partner, right? And we hope that one day, I mean, that company gonna improve in that issue, right? We don't divest all the money from that company. We may reduce, I mean, some allocation, yeah, partially reduce, but not need to be a total of the money that we invest. For example, we talked to some pension fund in Netherlands. They said that they want to invest in every company in their country, in Netherlands, because they want to engage. They want to raise, I mean, all the company in their country, they raise up the standard of E and S and G. Yeah, so that's their duty for do engagement as a leading institution investor. Yeah, so I think we follow that model. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Man. And Dzung? Sorry, DG, you're on mute.
In response to the demand from market participants, investors, pension fund issuers, and for the regulators, I think that Wong work very closely with the market participants to develop the standards, which one way to make sure that standards is applicable. The other way is that the standard can facilitate the businesses of the issuers of the company. It's very important because this is a very win-win. It's not only the regulator but also the market participants, and also that very important side is that the company themselves are more to green investors, to the green investors. This is not really the. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
This is this is good for all. Benefits for investors, but also companies, and also for the public people. And we, the regulator side, make sure that rules are there, transparencies are in place. And it's not only for investors, but also for benchmark providers that can support, I mean, what is called the supporting agencies, supporting institutions. And there will be, I think, new type institution or services will be provided in this green market as on the way that market grows. Couple of years ago, the third party or the assurer services is not really the services provided by a single institution. It can be somewhere as from the consultant company, but now it's really a businesses, and then the benchmark providers. ICMA have standards, but other benchmark providers, traditional benchmark providers, are providing the new benchmark for green. But where they can get and develop them, that is from the rules of disclosure. So it's always the role of the regulators as facilitators.
Thank you very much, Dzung. Well, we have actually one more question, but we've also run out of time. So I did want to just summarize to talk about what the important points moving forward are. So I really like Kun Jamjun's his. That's very interesting. And I think the situation we're in now is actually her, because climate change is here, it's everywhere, and we need a response. So to the her, I just wanted to ask all of you very quickly in 3 or 4 sentences to give your advice to corporates what action they need to take now if they are going to continue to tap the capital markets, or if they are planning to tap the capital markets for funding. And of course, we'll start with the lady first, Kun Jamjun.
Oh, thank you, Eugene. 3 words or 3 sentences.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I would say is that as part of its ESG journey, what I understand that as the director duties, there will be one of very important is about duty of disclosure. So ESG disclosure requirement is key. So all director will need to be prepared. And in order to take part of the ESG journey, and give blessing to all the team for the additional work and effort that the team and management need to do. And this to avoid the greenwashing as well, if they have the solid ESG data analysis and foundation. Yeah.
Thank you, Kun Jamjun. DG Dzung.
Thank you. And my advice to the corporate companies now: enjoy the journey. Don't sit back and wait for others. Enjoy the journey. You can learn from the journey, and start a journey, and then we'll come to the final destination for all.
Thank you. And Dr. Mann.
Well, I think we have no time. I think we have to do it right now, because carbon emission and net zero is irreversible process. I mean, if they increase more than threshold, it cannot be reversed. Yeah, that's our duty for every party.
With that, thank you very much, speakers, for all your time. I know you're all busy and you made time for us, so thank you very much. And to the audience, thank you very much for making time to listen. And to my co-organizers, thank you for working together for this wonderful series that we've launched. Thank you again. See you then.